I think that one of the principal problems we face, probably one of the principal problems we've always faced, is this question of how we deal with fear. How do we relate to fear in a creative, constructive way? We have choices. We can react to it and potentially worsen the condition that's causing the fear in the first place, or we can respond to it. And the traditions that go before us, our ancestry, for millennia have grappled with these issues and have come up with very profound ways of engaging with this very question. How do we deal with fear? In the modern world, I think part of the problem is that over the last few hundred years, with the advent of industrialization, what we've also tended to do is, in a way, trash, if you like, a very large portion of our history, of our development as people, relegating it to the realm of superstition and myth, something which is not pertinent in the modern empirical world of fact. And to that extent, a very large portion of how we have learned to relate to each other and to this question of fear has at the same time also been kind of got rid of. We have the belief that one of the fundamental ways of dealing with fear is to get rid of what seems to be the cause of that fear. And one of the primary causes seems to have been our fear of the unpredictability of the natural world. So the obvious answer to that is to make the natural world predictable. And the way we do that is by making the natural world human. So we turn it into cities with parallel streets and tarmac and 24-hour lighting and temperature control and all these different mechanisms to create what we consider to be a predictable environment, an environment that stays the same and is subject to our control. Of course, the problem with this is that in doing this we are, in a sense, compressing ourselves, closing ourselves down. We're isolating ourselves from a much, much bigger aspect of who we are, that is rooted in the uncertainty of existence, that is rooted in these mythical, heroic components of ourselves that are inextricably related to the unpredictability of the natural world. When you go back into the old myths, when you look at the stories that really, in a sense, gave rise to our culture, many of them are rooted in wilderness-type settings, that wild aspect of who we are, that part of ourselves that is unfettered, that part of ourselves that is subject to something much bigger than the control mechanisms that are put in place by our fear and our belief that we can edit out the random components that seem to assail us in our lives. And so to that extent we become, if you like, overly controlled. We live in cultures which are overly controlled. We live in cultures which are locked down. We live in cultures which are pathologically obsessed with health and safety. We live in cultures which are pathologically obsessed with terrorism and all these other things, which keeps us in a permanent state of fear. In other words, it doesn't matter how much control we appear to exercise over our environment, the fear doesn't go away. If anything, it accrues, it gets bigger. And so when we look at this question of who we are, when we look at this question of where we're going as human beings, we have to really ask ourselves some very deep questions, and we have to ask some fundamental questions about the manner in which we as humans are continuing to develop, the manner in which we are grappling with or trying to deal with the fear that resides within ourselves. We have to grapple with this deep belief that the only way to solve a problem is to root it out, truncate it and get rid of it. The understanding that if your toe hurts, the best way to solve the problem is to cut it off. If your heart aches, tear it out and get rid of it. You know, when we look at it like that, you know, it's obvious how ridiculous it is. But unfortunately, when we look at it in the bigger sense, when we look at it in the sense of what we're doing in the world now, we don't see that. We don't understand that that's what we're doing, that that's what's happening. And the principal reason that we don't understand that is because we have never had the option, we have never had the opportunity, most of us, of relating to that deeper, older part of ourselves that knows about that relationship, that knows about healing, that knows about regeneration, that knows how to work with that, and that understands that relationship and the relationship between us and all other things, that understands the inextricable relationship we have with all things, and that any kind of effect on something else is an effect on me directly.